Okay. Om Jnanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandayam Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahaganaraganatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Nashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Vancha Kalpatarabhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mareka Bandha Matsangin Madguru Madmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostate Asadu Sadu Tadaya Nati Nicho Chatakara Hanamucha Kadachin Mam Premna Ritkatayo Spada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Well, I just got a text from Liam. He went all the way to Hawaii to go, try to escape Krishna, and then only to find devotees from Tucson there.
Oh, really? From Tucson?
Yeah, apparently.
All places? Wow.
Can't escape Krishna. He's always looking for you after you come to him. You find Krishna. So I believe we're on Canto 1, Chapter 5, Chapter 6. And we're at the last little section of Chapter 6. So we're going to welcome Ryan. Everybody here know Ryan?
Oh, yes. He's like old school around here now. Yeah.
So Srimad Bhagavatam is what we're studying. You can go on, you have your phone on you? You can go online and you can go to www.vedabase.io. Vedabase.io, and then all of our, maybe Nitai can help him find the proper verse we're on. You remember what exact verse we're on?
34.
34? Okay. Yep, we're just about finished. Yep, 34.
Which 34? Thank you.
So I'll just do a little bit of a review. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Ryan, is the book we study every day in the temple. We read the Bhagavad Gita and we read the Srimad Bhagavatam. But of the two, Bhagavad Gita is like the, you can say the pre-graduate, and then Bhagavatam is like the postgraduate. So it's kind of an extended version of the Bhagavad Gita in the sense that all the messages and the lessons and the philosophy that's outlined in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita is expanded on in the Bhagavatam. In fact, the Bhagavatam is considered the culmination of all of the Vedic literatures. Every single bit of Vedic literature that was ever written is culminated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The message that's behind the Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is described as brilliant like the sun, and it's the actual incarnation of God in the form of a book. You can imagine that. Krishna incarnated as a book. Krishna swa dhammo bhagate dharma jnana divisaha kalo nastra samesa puranarko dinoditaha. And this Bhagavat Purana is brilliant like the sun. And it has arisen just after the disappearance of Lord Krishna to his own abode. When Lord Krishna left the planet, Lord Krishna appears occasionally to establish Dharma Hare Krishna Shena. So when Lord Krishna left the planet, the Srimad Bhagavatam incarnated to destroy the darkness of the age of Kali, which we live in. We live in this Kali Yuga. It's a very dark age, very ignorant time. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam exists to bring us out of that darkness. And so we're studying it, and what we've basically gone through, we're just going through it very systematically. And so now we've come to the chapter 7 almost. And so what's been spoken of so far is like, how did this Bhagavatam come to be? Why was it spoken? Anybody remember how this whole thing became started? Yeah, but before that. Before that.
Sages were gathered.
Yeah.
And they were instructed about that.
Yeah. So the sages at Naimisaranya, they gathered and they asked 6 questions, right? And so basically what happened was there was a great gathering of sages about 5,000 years ago. And these great sages wanted to come to a solution about the problems of the current age. They were able to see that in the future times, things were going to become very degraded. People were going to become dishonest. People were going to become full of lust. People were going to become full of envy, anger, greed, hatred, all these various, anarthas and challenges we face in this day. And so they gathered together and they decided, what do we do? And so they elected a president of the assembly out of all the various sages there in this kind of seminar. They elected one. Yes, Shaunaka Rishi was the questioner. Who did they elect as the answerer? Sutta, yeah. Sutta Goswami was the senior most and most learned sage. And so they elected him to the podium of the Vyasa-san to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam and to enlighten them. And so they posed 6 questions to Shaunaka Rishi. To Sutta Goswami. Shaunaka Rishi posed 6 questions. And these are very powerful questions, and we'll read them to you just so you can get a grasp of what actually it is we are answering in this book here, especially at this time right now. The first question is, what is the absolute and ultimate good for people in general? That's a good question, right? What's the absolute and ultimate good for people in general? Second question is, what is the essence of all scriptures? That includes Vedic scriptures, non-Vedic scriptures, Bible, Quran, Torah, all of that. What is the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings? Why did the Lord appear in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva? That's the third question. Describe the Lord's adventures in his various incarnations. Narrate the transcendental pastimes and activities of the Lord in his incarnations. And question 6 is, whom did religious principles take shelter after the Lord Krishna's departure? So where did religious principles take shelter after Lord Krishna's departure? In the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is this book that will give one principles. And also it's a mystical book. It's not a book of, you read a book and then you put it off, put it back on the shelf and forget about it, because Srimad Bhagavatam is full of spiritual sound vibration, and just the sound vibration of Bhagavatam is sufficient in itself to purify one. Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyanta Stilya Bhadrani Vedanoti Sarit Sitam. Did you hurt your toe, Jamuna?
No. It's just kind of swollen and red. It's going to be swollen off.
Oh.
I haven't some cold water.
You know that if you stub your toe, you made an offense to a Vaishnava, right?
I stubbed it.
No, I've heard that. I don't think that's true, but
I don't know if I stubbed it, but it's like super swollen.
every time I stub my toe, I think, I don't know. Which I've had some pretty severe ones here. Anyhow, so so there was this conversation going on, and these questions were asked. And Srimad Bhagavatam, by hearing it, this Bhagavat Gita, this whole part of the Bhagavatam has been discussing why mundane topics don't do anything for us and why spiritual topics do everything for us. And the idea is that when you actually hear spiritual topics from spiritually realized souls, it actually purifies our mind and our heart, and we lose taste for all those things which are binding us in the material world. And so that's called Bhakti Yoga. And so we're hearing about that, and we came to the point where the author of all the Vedas was very dissatisfied. And he had done all the different yogas, he had done all the different spiritual practices and so forth, and he was very dissatisfied. And then his guru came onto the scene and said, you're dissatisfied because you've yet to engage in Krishna consciousness. You haven't described Krishna, you haven't spoken about Krishna, and you haven't heard about Krishna. So then he went into meditation and he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he's all-knowing sage, Vyasadeva, incarnation of the Lord's energy. So he wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled it. Of course, it's ancient, it was spoken before that, but he compiled it and gave it. And now we're hearing the history of how it came to be respoken by Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev. So there's a lot there, but in any case, just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is in itself extremely beneficial. So we'll go ahead and read verse 34. I have 5% battery. Etadyatara chitanam matra sparshech chaya muhu baba sindhu plavo drishto hari chaya nuvarnanam. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nescience on the most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Wow. What a shloka. That's one to memorize right there. So someone can go ahead and read the purport.
The symptoms of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something, or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of the external illusory energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full of cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feelings, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artist, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the gopis and Lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descended to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly man, but at the same time extraordinarily because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nescience, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni, and we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord.
Wow. That's an amazing verse and purport there. So, yeah, etad yatura chetanam, for those who are full of material anxieties, matra sparshcheya muhu, due to constantly desiring sense objects. Bhavasindhu plabodrishto, the most suitable boat to cross over the material ocean is Hari Chaya Nuva Varnanam, the constant recitation of the Lord's activities. So very incredible.
It's interesting that this philosophy says you can't check all these thinking, willing, working activities, and so many other traditions seem to be striving to
exactly the point I was going to make. That
well, you can stop the thinking mind, you can stop this, and you really can. So you just got to redirect that.
What a relief, right? That like we get into Eastern spirituality. We get into Eastern spirituality and we think, oh, I got to stop my mind. I got to stop thinking. And I got to stop, acting. And then sometimes people come under the illusion that they're stopping acting because they just change their activities, which is also an illusion. Like I'm not acting, but yet I'm meditating and I'm doing all these things. And still we're acting. We're just doing a higher form of action rather than a lower form of action. But the idea is that the symptom of consciousness is action, activity. When a body stops acting, what is it? It's a dead body. It's a dead body, right? And that means the soul is left. And you cannot You cannot at any point disprove that. So the symptoms of life are thinking, feeling, and willing. And so the question then comes, how do I manage this? How do I manage this thinking, feeling, and willing? And so this is the solution, that rather than having material consciousness and being absorbed in the sense objects, one should transfer their consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, from lead to gold, so to speak. And so this is a very enlightening verse. That why are you full of material anxieties? Why? What does it say here?
These are concept of senses with their objects.
Yes, right. This is material anxieties, right? We have material anxieties because we want sense gratification. Right? This is why we have material anxiety. So pick an anxiety, not a Krishnaized anxiety. I have a lot of those, but not counting those. Those are transcendental anxieties. Pick an anxiety, pick a worry, pick a challenge in your life, and and just think about how it's definitely because you want contact with the senses of their objects, right? Hey, Curtis, Hare Krishna. You see, man? Right? What do you think, Ryan? Does that make sense? That I want whatever it is, I want food, I want sex, I want my ego to be, I feel good around this person. They make my ego feel good. They make me feel good about myself. I feel inspired by them in a material way. It's all sense gratification. And it doesn't last. It doesn't last, it doesn't last at all. So therefore, when we endeavor for these things, we become entangled. That's all there is to it. Yehi samsparsha jabogad dukkha yoni eyate aryatavanta konteya natesha ramate buddha. Man, Ita, you're really eating those shlokas up, man. Impressed. But you know way more shlokas than me. Fast watch. But so why a wise man doesn't take pleasure in the objects of the senses, because they have a beginning and an end. Therefore, he tries to find the pleasure within. So rather than discussing material things, watching material things, hearing material things, engaging in material things, simply transfer that to spiritual things. You can engage in spiritual work. You can engage in spiritual talks. You can eat spiritual food. You can associate with spiritual people who inspire you spiritually. And then you're solved. Your position is solved. And here's where the challenge comes, is that sometimes we think, there's a problem in my life, I need to fix it. And so we act, try to improve our sense gratification. And sometimes we think, there's a problem in my life, I'm not going to act. I'm just going to hold it, and let the Lord handle it. And then we're still suffering like anything. Why?
We want some outcome.
Yes, in a sense, we think we're the doer in either case. That's the challenge. You see, like, if you think you're the non-actor and you're just letting the Lord do his thing, then that's also you thinking you're the doer. You're not the doer, you're the observer. So let me just give it to God. And then, you're giving it to God, but in your mind, you're really hoping God does what you want, You're really hoping, I'm going to give it to you, God, but you know what I want, and, So what do? We realize that, actually whatever Krishna wants to happen is going to happen. Bas. You will never change that. Krishna will have an outcome. So rather, become detached and become the observer and act with knowledge and cultivate proper desire, because the Lord will act to fulfill your desire. So how do we cultivate proper desire?
Good association.
Good association, we practice our sadhana, we chant Hare Krishna, we read the books, we engage in the process, we have to become inspired, and we have to have the proper mindset, and then therefore whatever challenges or struggles that are coming in our mind, we know how to react to them in such a way that will remain, humble. And there's so many examples, right, of the way a devotee reacts. And it always has to do with hearing and chanting. You see, like, for instance, Maharaj Parikshit was cursed by Shringi. this great king, he was cursed by a little Brahmin boy to die in 7 days. He was so powerful, he could have easily countered the curse. Or he could have just surrendered and said, I'm going to die. So that's our option, right? We can act, we can try to counter what's happening to us, or we can just surrender. Both cases, not so good. But what did he do? What was his transcendental solution?
Here.
He heard Srimad Bhagavatam. He sat down and he listened to his guru speak Srimad Bhagavatam. So we may find in whatever position, like Arjuna, and as another example, he found himself in a very serious situation. He could have ran away from the battle, neglecting his duty, which was the wrong thing to do. Or he could have fought the battle and gained the higher planets. But rather, what did he do? He fought for Krishna. He fought because Krishna told him to fight. That's the whole science of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna starts off saying, fight because, you're a Kshatriya, you're a warrior, you're meant to fight, man. He says, happy are those Kshatriyas who such fighting opportunities come unsought, for they open the doors to the heavenly planets. So in other words, if you do your duty as a Kshatriya, as a Brahmana, as a householder, as a monk, if you do your duty in that way, you'll be successful, you'll be happy if you do your duty properly. And what are the duties of a Kshatriya? Defending the innocent, protecting, administering. What are the duties of a brahmachari? That was for Nita, I think.
Reading scriptures, enlightening the other classes.
Right? Reading scriptures, serving the guru.
To give wisdom to the other.
Doing austerity. That's another one. Doing austerity.
Just doing austerity. Because I noticed you never say avoid anything. Don't avoid, don't run from it. Always do. Do your chanting, do this. It's never like turn away from.
We turn away from 4 things. We turn away from illicit sex. We turn away from intoxication.
But when you ask, how do we do it? You always answer active verbs.
This is verse say here. For those who are full of material, dude, the most suitable boat to cross the material ocean is the constant recitation of the activities of the Lord.
What does it mean to do austerity? What does that mean?
Oh, we're not the doer, right? We're not the doer of our austerity. But what it really means is that austerity means that you give something up for something higher.
So what are the higher things for? Right?
Yeah, nice point. So we give up, right? We don't eat meat because that destroys our sense of mercy. We don't take intoxication because that pretty much destroys any sense of austerity. We totally lose, There's no sense of austerity if you're trying to deal with your problems by intoxicating. We don't have illicit sex because that totally makes you unclean in your mind. And you're always thinking about sex then and then. It's already hard enough to be, ever be so infected with sexuality and kind of lust, so to speak. If you're engaging in all kinds of illicit activities, then you're always going to be thinking about sex, and you can't think about God. And then, what I missed, gambling. And that also means any type of just speculative gambling, like low activities like that, that takes away our sense of truth. Even just watching TV, you just spend time watching aimless TV, sitting on your phone looking at memes, not Krishna conscious memes though. But you spend time, looking at memes, or whatever. That's also a form of gambling. Because how much truth is there in any of the things you're seeing? What's truth? Where's the Bhagavatam? I mean, you can Krishnaize your feed, I suppose, but truth is the principle. We have to be truthful, because when you're truthful, you get good karma. Things work. This is an amazing point here, that we have anxieties because we're seeking these sense objects. So by giving up the sense objects, you get a higher taste. And not just necessarily giving them up, but giving up attachment to them, because within due course of your duty, there are certain types of sense gratification that will come. Like Kshatriyas have a certain type of sense gratification allotted to them. Grihastas have a certain type of sense gratification allotted to them. Brahmacharis have a slim taste of sense gratification allotted to them, mainly in the form of eating Mahaprasadam. And sannyasis have some type of but we don't become attached to it. someone, I'm a big spiritual personality, everybody loves you and bows down before you, and that's also a type of sense gratification. You got to be totally aloof to it. How do you do that? By focusing on Krishna. So, therefore, the answer here is that the constant recitation of the activities of the Lord, that doesn't just mean chanting Hare Krishna, that means speaking about Krishna, that means acting in the capacity that you're serving Krishna, acting with a service mentality. Therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmaram yudhicha maya pita mano buddhir mam eva shashi shamshaya. Says that just perform your prescribed duty. What is your duty? Understand what is your duty. Perform that duty while at the same time remembering Krishna. In this way, you'll come to Krishna. So if we become attached to our duty and to the fruits of our duty and to the fruits of action, how can we think of Krishna? You see? So this is the difference between attached work and detached work. You should work. You have the propensity to act in a certain way, so do it. But unless you're cultivating attachment to God, you're going to have a challenge because you're going to become attached. You're going to become attached. Yeah. See, this sounds like me. So I'll just read this little thing from the Bhagavad Gita, this verse. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. So what does this mean, full contribution to spiritual activities? It means that all of his activities are spiritual by nature. Hare Krishna. All of his activities are spiritual, right? It means he's not doing material activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. And Srila Prabhupada says some really nice things in here. Okay. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. Can someone elaborate on what that sentence means? This is from the Bhagavad Gita purport on the 4th chapter. Matter regains its spiritual quality when dovetailed in the service of the absolute.
No, please, I'm not talking too much. I can't wait to hear what you're.
Well, it would pretty much be because technically all energies come from Krishna. The only thing that really makes it material is that it's used for our gratification instead of his.
Right, yes, the idea is that everything belongs to God, so everything's innately spiritual in that sense. So when it's used in God's service, it regains its spiritual quality. That's why a personality can be totally in Maya, come to the Krishna consciousness movement, and start engaging in Krishna consciousness, serving Krishna with their heart, mind, and soul, and then all of a sudden they transform into this other person. All of a sudden you see, Omar go to Nitai. You see these transformations take place, right? You see Bhakti. Yes.
It's crazy.
Krishna's crazy. Krishna's cool, man, as my friend likes to say. And so, Krishna consciousness, and this is what Prabhupada says next, Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the Supreme. So we're converting our illusory consciousness into the Supreme consciousness. Right? When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi, or trance. So how do we get the mind into samadhi practically?
By constantly thinking of Krishna.
Yeah, by constantly thinking of Krishna. But how do we constantly think of Krishna?
Constantly chant.
Why does that work? Thank you.
Because the names are not just Krishna and everything which is existent in the universe.
So the idea is actually that you fall in love. You can't help but constantly think of the person you fall in love with. That's just a fact. That's why it's really, I want to fall in love with Krishna. I want to fall in love with something that's not Krishna. Because then you'll always think of Krishna. And then you'll love everybody, actually, equally in a really genuine way. But you don't want to become material love, is that we're always thinking of someone. And so we're going to actually become like them. And no matter what they are, unless they're spiritually advanced personality, then we're always going to get some karma. There's so many different challenges, right? So therefore, when you chant Hare Krishna and you engage in this bhakti service and surrender, then you fall in love with Krishna, and then you become Krishnized. And now everything you do becomes spiritualized. All right. It's kind of a lot in this verse. It's like such a verse. It's like so amazing. But we'll go on to 35. Yamadudu yoga patai kamalobato guru mukunda sevaya yadvat tatatma dana samyati. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Thank you, Arjuna Sarthi Prabhu. Is that a blue ice cube?
They're reusable ice cubes.
What?
They're reusable ice cubes.
I used it last week.
Trying to understand how that works. Are they Sadvik?
After small guts get some sucked on, we just pop them back in the freezer.
Okay. Well, that's good. At least I get some tomorrow's mercy there. So, what this verse is saying is that one can do yoga, right? Like, so we're talking at a very high level here, Ryan, in a sense that we're saying that, you know, there are many different spiritual practices, but there's a general spiritual principle that we should have some sense restraint. And so the idea is that with sense restraint, when we restrain our senses, people gain peace and they get relaxed. They get, I have peace from all my material desires because I'm practicing austerity. And the less you engage in the objects of the senses, the more you become peaceful. But that doesn't give you satisfaction. Peace is not sufficient in itself to get satisfaction. So perhaps next time we can wait until after the class and start passing stuff out. It's a little distraction. For now, it'll be good. But yeah, peace. You know, we get peace if we restrain our senses. And so, but that doesn't give us satisfaction. So what we're saying is peace isn't the source of satisfaction. How many people want peace? So many people want peace, right? That's like what we're looking for. Like, oh God, give me some peace. But once you're peaceful, I mean, how many of you have been peaceful before? What do you end up doing? Why don't you just stay there?
Doesn't last.
Right? Because you're peaceful, but then you want to go do something. So then we come back to the last verse. Rather than just going and doing something, you should go do something for Krishna. Then you'll become satisfied in the soul because you're serving God. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Is that clear? Any comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So how can we actually restrain our senses, going off what you were saying earlier, if we're not the doer?
We're the desire.
So we just need the desire to restrain our senses and we'll be done?
We need Krishna's mercy. We need Krishna's mercy. I need Krishna's mercy. So you want to control the senses. Yeah, you have to have some desire. Because ultimately Krishna is the doer and he's the overseer and the permitter. Right?
Anxiety defines us too. For me, it's not only I want to do something, but if I'm in a state of peace, some new anxiety will appear
Right?
pretty quickly in my life.
Immediately. Oh, I see. I see the idea here. Okay, and we'll go to the next verse.
Narada Muni was he the one who grew up to the milk to the maid?
Yeah. Yeah, Narada Muni. Now we're hearing his conclusion statements. Someone can read, please.
Report of
We just skipped the purport.
Oh, Vyasadeva, you are free from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization, as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also.
So he's saying that, or let's read the purport. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence is all duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. Narada has explained how the seeds of devotional service, bhakti yoga, were sown by transcendental association, and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness, so much so that even a small boy could receive the news of his mother, the news of the death of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as a blessing of God. So that's a symptom of transcendental knowledge, that once you start hearing transcendental knowledge, all of a sudden all the travesties and catastrophes of the world become a lot smaller. Like I was just, one of my students up in Sierra Vista, Carol, very nice lady, student of Bhagavad Gita, and she's been helping us facilitate programs up there. And she was saying, her brother's passing away, and how she now she's been studying transcendental knowledge. She doesn't feel like sad like she feels like sad, but it's not like it's devastating. She feels like, this is what happens, right? The body passes away. How many of you had that experience of, since becoming a devotee, that someone or something dies and it's just not as devastating as you'd expect it to be, right? That all of a sudden you have a death or some kind of thing that you thought was going to be the end of the world, which doesn't hit you the same way. You're a devotee. What still does affect devotees, as I've noticed, is that they get a little bit in the mode of passion, and then they start desiring a certain type of sense object, and then when that doesn't come the way they want, then they still become pretty devastated. It's not like devastated like sadness. It's like just internal, like misery. Continue on here. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted him. Although it is not possible for anyone to see the Lord with mundane eyes, he also explained how by execution of pure transcendental service one can get rid of the fruitive action of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into a spiritual one. So what's happening here is that Narada Muni answered Vyasadev's inquiry. What was Vyasadev's inquiry?
Was about how he came to be.
The original thing that Narada Muni appeared for.
Oh, to kind of get him to kind of wake up to like.
He was dissatisfied. So we're all dissatisfied, right? Who here's been dissatisfied before? Right? So he was dissatisfied. And so why was he dissatisfied?
Because he'd written all the Vedas and still didn't.
So, yeah, right. We all get qualifications, right? Like some of us just got initiated. Now you're initiated now, and then I'm second initiated, and I'm in saffron. I should be satisfied, correct? I got qualification. I did my Bhakti Shastri, I did my Bhakti Vaibhav, and whatever qualification. Who's more satisfied than Vyasadeva? Did you think he passed his Bhakti Vaibhav? You think he got his Bhakti Vaibhav? No, he wrote the Vedas, right? So even though he wrote all the Vedas, he had all the spiritual knowledge. He'd done all the austerities. He'd done all the meditation. Everything you can imagine, Vyasadeva pretty much did. Right? He had qualified children, right? Shukadev, and amongst Pandu, these are really amazing children. Dhritarashtra, Vidura, he had some pretty qualified children. He had everything you can possibly imagine in life, in a sense, but he was dissatisfied because he'd yet to fully engage in bhakti yoga. He had not surrendered his heart to Krishna. So therefore, the conclusion of all the sages What is the highest good for all mankind? What will bring satisfaction? Savai pum samparadharmo yato bhaktir hoksajaya haitu kyapatiyata yatma supersedity, is that the supreme duty of all people is to engage in loving service to God. And that service has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Okay?
So Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna, right?
Yes.
So did he already know like why he was feeling unsatisfied? And it was kind of just like a play, like a pastime when Narada Muni came and like explained things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all pastime. But the thing you have to understand is not every Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna. Because Vyasadeva is a position. And so our Vyasadeva's name is, anybody know our Vyasadeva's name? No.
Something Krishna.
Krishna Dvaipanya Vyas. Krishna Dvaipanya Vyas. His name's Krishna Dvaipanya, and he's Vyasadeva. And so Krishna Dvaipanya Vyas is an incarnation of the Lord. But in each, actually in the next section of Yugas, there's going to be a new Vyasadeva. That's not the same Vyas. Who's the next Vyasadeva going to be? Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama is going to be the next Vyasadeva. So he got purified. He's out there on First Avenue sometimes. You see him wandering around out there. No, but so this Vyas is special Vyas because he happens to be here when Krishna was here. Obviously, that's special. Any questions?
What's a Vyas?
Vyasadeva is the author of the Vedas, or the person who compiles the Vedas.
You said a Vyas, like Vyas itself with a noun.
It's a position. Vyasadeva is like the president.
Oh.
Right. Some of the demigods are also positions, like Brahma is a position. There's many souls who've been Brahmas. There's many people who've been Indras. They're positions. You have the good karma, you can go to these higher planets and get these positions.
Only one Krishna.
What's that?
But only one Krishna.
Yes. No one can take the position of God. That's God's position. Okay, next verse. 37, right?
Yeah.
Sutuvacha evam sambhasya bhagavan naro vasavi sutam atmantriya vinamranyam yaya yadvichiko muni. Suta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wonder at his free will. Pretty clear there. So this thing that's going on here is that there's a great sage, right? We already discussed this great sage speaking to his guru. Narada Muni is this very special guru who has got an eternal spiritual body. He wanders around the universe playing the Veena. Yes, Prabhu.
So Narada Muni and Vyasadeva are both like empowered avatars. Does Narada Muni have like a specific name and that's a position too, like Vyasadeva, or is it different?
Narada Muni is not a position. Narada Muni is Narada Muni. He is, he's eternal. He's a liberated jiva.
And the other universes?
Narada Muni goes through all the different universes.
So he's the only Narada Muni.
Yeah, as far as I know. Prabhu.
Are you a Star Trek fan as well as a Star Wars?
Yes.
Do you think, sorry, this is a bit of a Monday question, but I always been curious about this. Do you think the character Q is somewhat based on Narada Muni? Because he has this kind of like, he stirs up stuff, he's kind of an all-knowing figure, he's traveling throughout the universe. Do you think there's some sense that the writers of that character knew about Narada Muni?
I don't think they probably knew about Narada Muni. I never made that connection because Q's kind of sinister.
Yeah, but sometimes Narada Muni comes and like stirs the pot, like
Yeah.
comes, right?
Well, yeah, he definitely, but he always, Narada Muni does stir the pot, but for the sake of facilitating Krishna. So when Krishna appears in a Star Trek episode, we'll know that Q is Narada Muni. Yeah, Q is an amazing character. A great character.
He was actually the very first, and then the very end, after all the seasons, he actually closed. He was the
Because
first.
he comes back in Picard.
Yeah.
Series too.
So they tied it up
Oh,
at
nice.
the very end. It was really cool.
It's actually, that's how God does in our life, right? He's the beginning and the end.
They made it.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next verse. All glory to the success of Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So this is the way of a devotee, right? This is the way of a devotee. If you want to be a devotee, we follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni. So all glories to the success of Srila Narada Muni. First things first is all glories to the success of another devotee, right? Not, all glories to me, and that devotee who's successful shouldn't be successful because I deserve to be successful. A devotee is always happy at the success of another devotee because we're all on the same team. We're on Krishna's team, right? And what's Krishna's mission, right? So then this is beautiful. Because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. So by glorifying Krishna, if we live in a state of glorifying God, that's our position. Because we're part of God. So we live in a state of glorifying God. And so doing himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So we'll take pleasure in that process of Krishna consciousness and we'll enliven others. So that's what's happened to us. The reason we're here is because we came across a soul who was acting in the capacity of Narada Muni in some way, shape, or form. And in that we became enlivened, and now we're in the process of enlivening others, right? Okay, so now we'll go to chapter 7. Anybody have some things that we could just have some sharing of, like some of these spiritual realizations, some of the things that we've understood so far from the Bhagavatam, takeaways that we've done. We're now really switching sections of the Bhagavatam when we go into chapter 7. We're gonna take a completely different turn here. So, what's the deal? What have you have understood so far? You've been coming from the beginning. Yes, Janesh Prabhu.
I think it was the first verse we read in the report. Prabhupada saying how we always want to be active, we always want to be doing something, what we should be doing it in the service of Krishna. And I just think it's neat. I mean, lately I've been kind of having this realization, I like to make things and fix things and just, whatever it is, just kind of across the board. Like I like to always be active and, if I'm doing that stuff around here that could be mundane, like it doesn't have to be like serving the deities or preparing for sadhana, but things that don't really seem like devotional service, like, just maintenance around here. Like the other day, I installed a ceiling fan in Divya's old room, or helping Bureau move a fridge. Like that stuff that is really mundane becomes much richer. And, because we want to be doing stuff. Like I always want to be useful and doing stuff like that. But when you're actually doing it in service of Krishna and serving devotees, it becomes meaningful and becomes much more richer.
Yeah.
So that was just my realization recently, that it doesn't have to be like so directly like things that we think of as devotional service, like, whatever, serving the deities, like prasadam, reading, chanting.
Especially this is how we connect it, is that there's 9 processes of devotional service, right? Starting with hearing and chanting and remembering, serving the deity, offering prayers. So like, how do we incorporate work into that? And the idea is that, really devotional service is coming from bhakta to bhakta. That's the main thing. And that's what we're demonstrating this in this part of the Bhagavatam here, that we're hearing how it's basically this Bhagavat Dharma is transferred by speaker to student. And so when you associate with devotees who are really doing something special, they're not normal people. And devotee of the Lord is not a normal person. We have to have that vision. Because a devotee has this one special superpower. He can give you service to the Lord because he's engaged in service to the Lord. And that's factual. That's not made up. That's not, woo-hoo, new age. No, a devotee really is someone factually engaged in God's service because he got his service from someone engaged in God's service. And you can trace that disciplic succession all the way up to Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And the Krishna consciousness movement, or the activities of this movement, are the same activities that the Lord was doing. And the Lord always does these activities in different ways. But in this age, the way he does it is by speaking Bhagavatam and chanting Hare Krishna and distributing blessed food in this kind of really divine, merciful movement that we're part of. Sankirtan movement is the Kali Yuga manifestation of that. So a devotee has the superpower of giving you service. And so when that person gives you service, that service is not in the material world. It's spiritual, whatever it is. And so all of our work, if we're properly guided, if we actually have a guru and we're properly guided by the guru, and we have the right intention, and we don't mundane our guru for material things, we actually just have the proper mood with the guru, right? What is the duty of a man about to die? What should he do? What should he think about? What should he hear about? We have this kind of mentality. Then, and we engage in that, then all of those activities become fully spiritualized. You can raise your family, you can go to work, you can, do your job. And it's fully spiritualized because you're learning how to make your life spiritual, right? Your home is an ashram. It's a grihastha ashram. Grihastha ashram means it's an actual place of spiritual development. It's just like living at a temple. And there's a deity, and there's service to that. And you're working to maintain a lifestyle of Krishna consciousness. You're not working to maintain sense gratification with your family members. You're working to maintain a lifestyle of Krishna consciousness. And just like we have people working, Mother Sandami's working very hard. We have Kumadvan in the restaurant working very hard. The devotees are working all very hard at the temple to maintain what we have here so that we have the opportunity to live the lifestyle of Krishna consciousness. And so in that way, one, if properly connected to the devotees and properly connected, they can spiritualize their whole existence. And that includes, brushing our teeth, taking a shower, taking food, associating with loved ones. It's all spiritualized. But we have to have developed the proper mindset. That takes training, and that takes taking the training seriously. But if you take the training seriously, then yeah. Itai Prabhu.
So when we do something that seems like mundane, like like installing a fan in the temple or like cleaning the bird cages, does it have like the same potency as something like chanting?
Yes. Yes. In a sense, we have to also understand that Jiva Goswami, the name is everything in Kali Yuga. It's connected to the name. It's all absolute, but the name is all powerful. So Jiva Goswami explains that all the activities of devotional service are dependent on the name. But how do we connect our installing a ceiling fan to the name? Well, we chant Hare Krishna while we just install the fan. We think about Krishna. If we can't chant, we think about it. Therefore, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, Mam Anusmaram Yudyacha. Mam Anusmaram Yudyacha. Perform your prescribed duty while at the same time remembering me. That's the idea. Public safety alert. Oh man, all right. Anyways, no time for that today. Headed out? Okay. Oh yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, Balaram tomorrow. Yeah. Balaram Das. He's gonna come for one day.
So what if we're like not chanting while we're performing some type of service in the temple? Like, does it still have like the same potency? It's like a temple of Krishna, it's Krishna's energy and cleaning it. So
It's your awareness. It's your awareness. Are you doing it for Krishna? Are you doing it for Krishna? That's the basic thing. It's the awareness. You can't be thinking like, sometimes there's activities where you can't be like thinking about, Krishna and the gopis, like perhaps per se in the middle of a battlefield. It's not like you can be thinking it, but you're doing it for Krishna. I see you. I'll get to you. You're doing it for Krishna, right? So that's the consciousness. It's the consciousness by which intention is so much important. What is our intention? And so the guru is training us up in the service attitude. That's basically what it means. We got to be trained in the service attitude. Otherwise, even all of our spiritual activities are just selfish in a sense, right? Doing them for me, so I can become liberated. What am I actually doing to help others, teach others, and what is actually helping others? And helping others really means helping them come to the spiritual level, high spiritual level. Arjun Prabhu.
So when you chant,
while doing service, how does that compare? Like, say you're doing some service, but you really shouldn't be chanting, right? But because it's something that really requires like a lot of focus. Say you're not a very good driver and you're driving like a Swami to the airport, but you're behind on your rounds. So you're like chanting on your beads while you're driving to the airport versus.
Rounds are something different. Rounds are something different.
So that's completely different territory than just spontaneously chanting.
Like Sureshwar Prabhu is a great example. He's always chanting. Everywhere you see him go, he's pretty much chanting. He's always singing about Krishna or chanting, you know. It's a good example. But at the same time, he chants his rounds. That's a different thing. He's always, if he's chanting his rounds, he's at least trying to be focused all the time. You know, so, you know, like we don't chant japa. You know, japa is not meant to be done. I mean, if you can't do it otherwise, you have to be like, you know, doing it in the mundane way. Okay, that's good that you're finishing your rounds. But if you really want to actually advance significantly, I mean, when I say significantly, I mean very significantly. You really want to chant, you know, like chant with full attention, full focus, and that means that I'm dedicating this time to Krishna. That's really, we're the Hare Krishna movement. You know, it's the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantras are everything. So that time we do for japa, that's very special. And that's what, I mean, I've seen this time and time again. Basically what separates, you know, japa is pretty much what separates like those who are very empowered from those who are, you know, somewhat empowered. Every time you'll find that, you know, like devotees take that, that's the meditation, that's the prayer, that's what connects you. It's very powerful to chant japa, very seriously. But it takes practice and it takes priority and it takes sacrifice to make that time for japa. You know, there's no question of like, for me, these days, like chanting japa, that's, I chant. That's my policy. When I chant, I chant. Like, I'm going to be chanting my rounds for this time, at this time of the day. And if I don't get that done, I'm going to be skipping something else to chant my rounds and focus on that. Because otherwise, you start, you know, teasing the apparatus of the holy name, and then like, you can't, you struggle. You have a spiritual struggle. Prabhupada said, right, you know, you chant all your rounds seriously and you read a little and you take prasadam, you become so enlivened. It's so easy. You get so much mercy from the holy name. It's so incredible and powerful. Someone else raised their hand?
I noticed a change. I don't know how it ties into stream that. I'm sure you'll tell me, but you know how I noticed a long time ago about criticizing someone, it's always because I don't like that about myself.
Yeah.
Or if I want to give someone some advice, I would feel like I have to tell them some advice. It's always the advice I need to hear. You know how that happens?
Yeah.
So I've been becoming more and more and more aware of this. Now I'm seeing it from the outside, people trying to change my behavior. I can tell that it's something that they need to be hearing themselves. And anyway, so this has been happening so often that it's starting so that I feel tons of compassion for people and myself. It's like making me peaceful and calm. I don't know how you...
Well, I think there's definitely something to, at least the way I look at that, and this is just me, you know, I can say that I can say something about, you know, if I'm criticizing someone, usually it's because I need to fix something in myself. That's psychology. But if I'm seeing other people criticize me and thinking they need to hear that, I don't think that, because then I'm playing with my ego too much. Oh, they need to hear that, you know. Rather, I think I try to take what they say and find the truth in it, you know. Like, okay, maybe it's, you know, if someone comes and says, you know, Kirtaneshwar, you're a sense gratifier.
Well, in this case that before it became clear, somebody was trying to tell me, Shana, it's about love. Shana, it's about love. Shana, understand it's about love. And I'm like feeling really peaceful and loving, and this person's not. And so it became clear to me that it's the same, it's like the same, I was witnessing this thing that I do with other people from the outside is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. If you don't react, like if someone is coming at you with something and you don't react, and that's a superpower really when you have that ability. Like, I mean, it's happened to me like almost, I can say like probably 50, 60 times. Someone will criticize me and I don't react. And that energy has to go back. And like, I'd just be like, Prabhu, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me, Prabhu. Yeah, no worries. Don't even think about it. You know, it's just like, ding, 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 ding. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, please forgive me. I shouldn't have said that. You know, it's really, really, Gurudev taught me that, and I'll tell the story. It's my favorite story of one of Gurudev's Puranas. Is one of Gurudev's pastimes that he witnessed was he was with His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. Tamal Krishna Goswami was a very heavy devotee. He was very like, you know, he would kind of get heavy with people. He was like a heavy leader, you know, and not like our Tamal Hari. He's very sweet. But he was a very, very heavy devotee, and so some other devotee was very much criticizing him. Of course, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had given his entire life to Krishna, like in a radical way. He surrendered everything to Prabhupada for the service of Prabhupada, and so he was, you know, very amazing in that sense. And let me get some of that water there. And there was a man criticizing him very hard, and he said, you know, okay, we're gonna have a meeting. They had this meeting, and they had the meeting, and then they all sat down, and you know, Tamal said, all right, we're gonna go to this meeting. He said, I'm gonna chant around first, and him, my Gurudev, chanted around. My Gurudev was there as kind of a mediator, so they went in the room, and then Tamal Krishna Maharaj sat on the floor, and the man sat in the chair. And he started for 45 minutes. He said, you're this, and you're that, and you're this, and you're that. And after that 45 minutes, Tamal Krishna Maharaj put his head down and took his glasses off and said, you're absolutely right. And if you knew all the things that are in my heart, you would be able to speak so much longer. And just, you know, I just pray for me that I could overcome this faultiness in my heart. And then the man started crying, started trying to grab Tamal Krishna Maharaj's feet, because he realized that actually was being very offensive. He was really not an excuse for that type of behavior, to criticize a Vaishnava. Because we all have faults, you know, it's like everybody has faults. You know, like it's not very hard to find faults. But it's not really our place to try to be a fault finder. Sometimes we have to correct people if we're you know, in an ashram space, and there's room and space for correcting people and for dealing with issues and that type of thing. But you have to kind of know your position. Like there are certain devotees that want to be corrected, and certain devotees that they think they know it all. And so if they think they know it all, then let them know it all. But it's not my place to, like, you know, I'm not going to get in there and try to like aggressively, you know, correct someone. But you know, generally those who think they know it all, they'll get corrected by those who are powerful enough to correct them. And it's you know, it's pretty shocking and jarring spiritually to have like some high spiritual personality cut into your ego like that. But generally, yeah, we don't need to, you know, respond to these types of criticisms and things. And if someone's criticizing me, I don't usually, you know, sometimes maybe I'll care for a few minutes and I try to let it go, because it's not me, it's my body they're criticizing. It's my mind, it's my ego they're criticizing. I'm a spirit soul full of knowledge and bliss. If I know that, then what can hurt me? So the more you realize you're not your body, the more you become immune to these types of things. Yeah. You had something to say anytime?
Not really.
Oh, you just have your hands up. Just in a yogi position.
Well, I was kind of just like wondering, like, what really determines like intent? Like, you know, I can see a dirty pot, clean it, and then be able to intellectually say like, oh yeah, this is Krishna's pot. But I don't know if that necessarily counts as like seva. Like, I wonder if it's like you have to like explicitly say like, oh, I'm about to clean Krishna's pot, and that somehow makes it like the intent of doing it for Krishna. Like, what determines that?
Well, see, this is where you kind of get into this state of like, there's some confusion. This is where you start drawing the line between karma yoga and bhakti yoga. Now hear me out here. Karma yoga is very much misunderstood. It is very much misunderstood. People think they can perform karma yoga now. It's very difficult to perform karma yoga in Kali Yuga. You have to be doing a spiritual duty. And so in previous ages, they had what's called varnashram dharma, where you had a duty that was very clear. Like, I'm a kshatriya, my duty is to protect. And I'm a grihastha, my duty is to take care of my family for the purpose of serving the greater good, Krishna. And so because I have the propensity to work, right? The real thing is that I just give up all these actions and I can just sit there and be in God. Can you do that? No, most people can't. That's called karma sannyas. It's very, very difficult. It takes many, many lifetimes to cultivate karma sannyas, where I don't got to act. So most people, it's like, I need to act some way, shape, or form. Like I have to, reproduce. I have to, go out and, I got to go fight. I'm a fighter. I need to fight. They have these propensities. I got to learn, And so, therefore, let me, within the system, the spiritual system, religious system that existed in those times, let me engage these things in Krishna service. And I'm giving up the fruits. I'm enjoying the actions, but I'm giving up the fruits. I'm not attached to the fruits of the action. I'm attached to the work itself. So, when you start getting into like the itty gritties of things, Krishna doesn't overthink things, and you shouldn't either. But then going further than that, like in Kali Yuga, everything's all jarred. Like you can't do necessarily, it's very difficult to do a spiritual duty. Like, if I got to go to work at the grocery store, I got to I got to sell people sinful things, I don't want to, like so many sinful things you can sell at the grocery that you have to touch at the grocery store. There's, what to speak of, just like meat and then these alcohol and drug, cigarettes and, so many things you have to do. Wait. And so how do you purify yourself? So this is where the level of the holy name, chanting, and this kind of intention that like, I may find myself in entangling circumstances, even in those kind of spiritual duties, like Arjuna was finding himself fighting these kind of pure devotee people. So even in spiritual duties, we may find ourselves in these entangling situations. So the idea is that the mind is purified by always thinking of Krishna. No matter pure or impure, if I'm thinking of Krishna, I'm pure. So let me have that attachment to Krishna. So bhakti yoga is different in that I'm not attached to this work because of the work itself. I'm not attached to being a grihasta because I want sense gratification. I'm not attached to being a grihasta because I want, or to being a kshatriya because I want to fight, or being a this because I want, or because I'm attached to this person. Whatever it is, I'm not attached for that reason. I'm attached to these activities because this is what Krishna has given me to do. This is my service. I'm attached to Krishna. And if Krishna says, all right, now it's time to move on to this. And we see that like an example, another example, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He had preached all over America. He started the Radha Damodar party. There was so much books being distributed. He was like the king. And Prabhupada said, come to India. And then he let it all go immediately. He went to India. That's the way a devotee works, that my service has changed. Krishna wants me to do this. No attachment. I'm willing to do whatever Krishna wants me to do because I'm attached to Krishna. And so, like washing a pot is just a mundane duty. It has to be done. And, like you can, intellectualize it so many ways, but the idea is that it's Krishna's pot. I'm cleaning it for Krishna. I'm a devotee. I'm chanting. I'm doing all these devotional things. I don't really got to think like, am I going to get karma for cleaning this pot? It's kind of like, if I'm cleaning the pot, like, and like looking at all the girls and seeing like, hey, look how good I'm cleaning this pot. You see me, I'm the best pot washer here. Look at my muscles as I clean the pot, and then that's material. But I mean, you're just like, okay, I got to clean the pot. It's Krishna's pot. We're in his house. Cleanliness is next to godliness, so it's my duty to keep things clean. So I keep my room very clean because it's Giriraj's room. It's my deity's room. I keep it clean. Arjuna had something to say, and then we'll end.
I was just gonna, it doesn't that go off of it's your duty, it's your dharma, like that's your pot. You're a brahmana.
It's our duties. We do our duty.
And then I was gonna ask about working at a grocery store. Say you work at the grocery store, but you're not checking people out. You're like the manager.
The point is that if you're a devotee, you're free of that karma. That's the point. It's that if you're trying to work at a grocery store and do karma yoga like varnashram, it doesn't really work because varnashram duties are all sinless in a sense. They're all spiritual. Like A brahmana, he's made doing, it's all in the service of God. Like just by virtue of doing, that's what Ramananda Roy was asking Lord Chaitanya, what is the highest thing? Ramananda Roy said, just do your varnashram duty. And Lord Chaitanya said, external. Because what he's saying was truth. He said, the only way to please God is to do your duty properly. But we don't live in a system where we have like spiritual duties, like no one was doing these things in the Vedic times. It was a very spiritually elevated culture. Like, certain people in India, they can do like karma yoga, and they have like sinless duties. But for us, like that's why bhakti is recommended. Why am I doing this? Like we have devotees who do work at stores and so forth, but they're doing it as a service to Krishna. It's their duty to serve the family, to serve the deity. And so that's spiritual. And so within that spiritual service, there's always going to be some karma, but it's relieved because it's ultimately for Krishna. It's ultimately because I'm attached to Krishna. I'm attached to serving Krishna's devotees. That's why I'm doing this. So a devotee can do that, could work in that way. But they should try to avoid if possible. All righty? We have some more prasadam to pass out, I think. Okay. Jandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Yes, anybody